another virtual event of the Bastiat Society of Washington, D.C. My name is Steve Dewey. I'm the chapter director of our Washington, D.C. chapter of the Bastiat Society. For those of you not familiar with the Bastiat Society, it is the public outreach program of the American Institute for Economic Research, otherwise known by its acronym AIER. The purpose of the Bastiat Society is to educate and promote the ideals of free market economics, sound money, personal liberty, and a free and civil society. The Bastiat Society has now grown to 40 chapters around the world, with 17 chapters in the United States and 23 chapters in foreign countries. And if you'd like to see more information about AIER and the Bastiat Society, you can go to our website, aier.org. Today, I am very excited to have Li Schoolland as our featured speaker. Li is based in Hawaii, and she is an independent educator, writer, translator, event organizer, and Director of External Relations for the Asia-Pacific region for the Acton Institute. And Li will be speaking today on her incredible personal story of survival under Mao Zedong's horrific cultural revolution in China during the 1960s and 70s. Born in 1958, Li survived the first 26 years of her life under the harsh conditions of communist China, including her first 18 years under Mao's reign of terror. Li left China in 1984 to live in the United States. As a survivor of Mao's communist cultural revolution, Li chose to dedicate the rest of her life to telling her personal story about life in a communist state and warning the rest of the world about the evils of communism. Li has been involved with several nonprofit organizations promoting free market economics, business entrepreneurship, and the ideals of freedom and liberty around the world. She also arranges translation and publication of libertarian literature into Chinese language. So we're very honored to have Li speak to us today. Before we start our discussion with Li, please note that we will allocate at least 20 minutes for a Q&A session with attendees once Li has concluded her presentation. Attendees will be muted throughout the course of this event, so questions from attendees will be submitted in writing, and I will read those questions submitted as they come in. And now I turn it over to Li. Li, please proceed.
Thank you, Steve. Aloha, everyone. It's early in Hawaii. I don't really know where all you're coming from, but thank you for being here at this time. Thank you for the Bastiat Society inviting me to share my story. So, as Steve said, my name is Li Schoolland, and I am made in China. When I, this is the photo of my parents on their wedding day. And my father was the tallest man in the picture, and my mother was the one in front of him. Then the one seated in the armchair was my great-grandmother. And on the right-hand side was my grandmother, my grandfather. And the one in the middle was my uncle, my father's younger brother. My great-grandmother had bonded feet. Probably you heard about it. The feet was very small. And she married into a very prominent family who was the Commodore of HSBC in China. So they're very westernized. But my great-grandmother was still very traditional Chinese style. she gave birth to 9 children. My grandmother was the second of the 9, and 8 of the 9 children were girls, only 1 boy. And because they were very westernized, so none of the 8 girls had bounded feet. And all of them, all girls and boys, received the highest education. My grandmother went to Tsinghua University, the #1 university in China, and met my grandfather there. And she was the first time when Tsinghua University changed from all boys university to co-ed. She was the one of the first female students in that university. And all her siblings either went to the best universities in China or educated in the United States or Great Britain. So it's during that time, that was very unusual. So this room, I have to say something about this room, was in their living room of their home in Shanghai. It was a French style single family home with a very big garden. And soon after this picture was taken, this room was taken away by the government and given to a family of 8, 6 children to live in there, because the communist government want to provide equality and fairness to all people. So my grandparents, my great-grandparent, my great-grandmother, only 3 of, and my uncle, 4 of them don't need that big a house. Actually, it wasn't very big, just a 3-bedroom and 1 living room and 1 dining room and the kitchen and the garage. So they moved a couple into the garage to live there as a home, and moved a family of 8 to the living room and 1 bedroom. So the house was cut in into 2, and unfortunately, the 1.5 bathroom was on the side of my grandparents, and so the new family with of 6 have no bathroom, so they use a timber pot, big bucket, and everybody shared 1 kitchen. And during the Cultural Revolution in 1966, and the government moved in another family of 3 into the side of where my grandparents lived. And so my grandparents, by then my uncle moved away, and my grandparents and they have 1 bedroom, and the other family had another bedroom, and the living room was shared by everybody. And the kitchen was also shared by all families. And this lasted until late 1980s. So that's how the Chinese Communist Party provide equality and care for everybody, just by making a regulation. I think that time in Shanghai was 2 square meters per person. That's the standard. If you have a living space more than 2 square meters per person, then you have too much. So that's their style. And I was born, like Steve said, 1958. By then, my parents already moved to Tianjin. My mother went to university in Tianjin, Nankai University, studied English, and she was a top student. So after graduation, they assigned her a job teaching English at the same university. And so my father went to medical school in Shanghai. They were childhood sweethearts. So my father moved to Tianjin to join my mother. And I was born in Tianjin, and we lived on the campus of Nankai University because all the housing was assigned by the government. Usually is where you're at the same place you work. My brother was born a year and a half later. As you might know, the 1958, from 1958 to 1962, China had the Great Leap Forward. What the Great Leap Forward was is Mao Zedong believed China can be a world power, bypass United States and Great Britain in very short time by simply producing more iron than United States and Great Britain. Then China will become the world power, economic power. So in order to produce more iron, only the steel mills is not enough. So he made the whole country, entire country, produce iron. No, regardless what your job, what you do, everybody. And so you can see from the photos, those little, I don't even know what to call them, and burners, thermos, and furnace, and I remember on the campus of Nankai University, all the sports grounds, football fields, all turned into like the picture on the left below. And all the trees were cut down because there's not enough coal to fire. And then there's not enough iron ore to make the iron. So every family was asked to contribute, actually was forcibly given their metal products like pots, pans, shovel, hammers, and everything made with steel had to be turned it into the government. And all the trees were cut down to burn. And after a while, no more trees, especially in the cities. So wood furnitures were taken away, tables and chairs, to burn, to melt down the ready-made metal product. And after it turned into a lump of something, and they weighed it and counted as a production of iron. So and the Chinese Communist Party got into power is because they told the people they would take care of everybody. And by taking care of everybody, it's by equally redistribute all the productions evenly to everybody. In order to do that, they also started confiscated all private properties, because it's not fair for somebody to own property, to own businesses, to have more than other people. So only way to equally distribute everything, make everybody fair, is the government control all the means of production. And also all the raw materials, all the land, everything. And they said that's the only way everybody can be equal. So after that, productions almost stopped, because also this reminds me of what's going on today. The government start to determine what is essential and what is not essential. And they believe they know better than anybody else what they need in their daily lives, from food to clothing to furniture to school to every aspect of life. They determine what is essential, what is not essential, and they stop all non-essential productions. For example, cosmetics is not essential. And cosmetics can make some people prettier than others. That's not fair. So no more cosmetics. And only small production for stage performers. And also clothing. You don't need clothing with decorations or colors and other different kind of essence on there, and just simple style and couple of colors. So alongside with that, other productions was also stalled because the focus was making iron. So my mother always felt sorry for my little brother, because after he was born, there wasn't even milk or powdered milk or milk product for babies. So just some paste made of probably flour with some tiny little milk and sugar in there, and just to fill your stomach. And also, there's no choice for a woman after giving birth, how long they want to stay home. The government decided 56 days is good enough. So they must go back to work. And my father at that time was a resident in the hospital. So he only can go home for on Sundays. And so my mother couldn't take care of both of us. So we were both put into what do you call that? Daycare, but we couldn't go home. So boarding school. We only get to go home on Sundays. Sometimes my mother told me after she picked up my brother from the care center and wash him and fed him and put him into bed, and she has no energy to go there to pick me up. So sometimes I won't even get to go home weeks at a time. So totally grown up without my parents. So all Sundays were very special for me. That's the only thing I can remember. And immediately following the Great Leap Forward was Great Famine. I don't need to explain the reason, because all the productions were stopped, and a lot of materials were destroyed. So Great Famine followed. And also during that time, China and the Soviet Union had the relationship turned sour. And China borrowed a lot money from Soviet Union. So they want to pretend to be a tough guy, say, okay, we don't need your help. And pay back, trying to pay back the loan. I don't know if Soviet pressed China to pay back early and immediately or not, but China want to be tough and show off their power. So and also want to show off as a big brother for all other communist countries. So giving foreign aid to Eastern European countries like Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and all these countries. And they didn't ask for it, but China say, we're big brothers were giving you all these foreign aid, even though they have a much better life standard and than China. But the Chinese government didn't think about that. They didn't think that their own people need food. So the limited productions were sent away, and the people in China were left with almost nothing. But the propaganda was there, and with all bountiful food and happy children. That reminds me of all the posters today you can see in North Korea. When people show the posters from North Korea, I thought that was just the same, exactly the same. But the reality was people were dying of starvation. I remember, I learned to recognize all the edible grasses on the ground, the leaves, flowers from the tree, and because food was rationed by the government per person, and they decide each person need how much food, and they also decide you should eat either wheat product like noodles or flour, or rice product. And they determined people live on the north of Yangtze River only get wheat, and people live on the south of Yangtze River get all rice. But my parents were from Shanghai. They love rice, but we couldn't get rice because Tianjin was in the north. So my father had to go through a lot of trouble to prove that he was born. His family were from Shanghai. So finally he got some quota of rice. And that's just part of the grains we get, and other things like sorghum, millet, and sweet potatoes, and corn. Cornmeals was other part of the food we get, all by quota. There's not just grains, everything have to ration, because it's not enough. And they decide boys will need more than girls, so girls get less food than boys, and also by age. They're very detailed, because also another thing is everybody have employment. So there's a lot of government jobs. They are government jobs, and a lot of these things, they employ a lot of people to calculate these things. And so like I said earlier, everything was nationalized. My grandparents have a lot of factories and stores and banks. They have their families at banks, and or they have a lot of stocks. They were just, at the beginning, 1950, 1951, they pay 1 penny per stock they're trying to buy off, and now everybody wants to buy, and a year later they just say, okay, never mind, we're not paying, we're just taking it over. And the land was taking over. And the landlord usually was executed. One of my mother's side ancestor, they were landowners near Shanghai, and the whole village, everybody loved them because they were very generous. They provide job opportunities, they provide food, they provide care for the whole village, and everybody loved them. But the government just came in and executed her. I read yesterday, one family, because they're landowners, they have not too much I think was 80 acres of land or something like that. The family of 16 was executed at the same time, and the youngest one was 8 years old, got executed. And they put metal wire through the nostril of the landowner, like cow, and drag them to the village center and just executed them in front of the whole village. Just because the only crime is they own land. And now, when the food became so scarce, and the government came with another strategy, they forbid people eating food at their own home. Everybody have to eat together, and work units or villages, and have one big kitchen. Everybody have to give their own the food and their rationed food and whatever edible to the communal cafeteria's kitchen, and then eat together. And the first 2 weeks, everybody was very happy, because when they were eating at home, they know how to plan for the whole year or the whole month with limited food. And once everybody eat together, they don't plan at all. They just cooked everything. Every day was like a feast. Usually Chinese people only have a feast, Chinese New Year and the Moon Festival, which is coming up soon in a week or so. And 2 weeks, everybody feasted together. And after that, nothing left. So immediately government came back with another propaganda, say, okay, we have to be saving food. So let's be creative. Let's find anything that's edible. And just like today, actually, Xi Jinping just called the Chinese people to tighten their belt. And it's illegal to waste food. And because Chinese economy is hitting the bottom right now with the pandemic, and also the sour relationship with the United States. So they stopped importing food. So China is going back towards this direction. And people like me, we say this is nothing new. We know what's coming up. And also they reintroduced coupons for food. Last year, they already did for the pork. So these pictures, I have vivid memory already. By then, 1963, I was already 5 years old. So I remember these. I've seen people died on the side of the street, and in the whole country, everybody was kind of swollen. I don't know why. When you're starved extremely, and you first before you turn to a skeleton, you get swollen, and productivity went down dramatically because nobody had energy to do anything. And during that time, theft is become very popular because people were so starved, and they start to go to government kitchen to steal food. I remember my brother did, even in late 1970s. They went to the government kitchen and to steal a handful of rice or noodles, whatever. And the punishment was so severe, especially kids. Grown-ups sometimes can control themselves, and but kids, when they're extremely hungry and they saw food somewhere, they couldn't help to get a handful of it. And these are the documented truth. And also, not every place have a bullet to shoot people. So bury people alive is very popular. Even when I was very young, I remember I was told why bury people alive can kill them. And because when they bury you up to your neck, your heart was, for some reason, you just have all the pressure, you couldn't breathe. And your head above the ground, you still could breathe for a short period of time, then you just suffocated and die. And because we're our institute are close to economic thoughts and theories, and so I want to talk from this perspective. And during that time, the poverty level in China was much lower than all African countries. And the average intake of calorie per person in China was much lower than the average, what do you call that? Intake of calorie in the Auschwitz, the German Jewish concentration camp, the entire China. And some villages want to show off and please Chairman Mao. So they fabricated the harvest data. And they put all the seeds, all the nutrient fertilizer into a very small piece of land and produce very high yield of production harvest. So they invited Mao to visit. Mao only saw that small plot of the ground and was so happy. He said, okay, this is going to be the standard for the whole country. Every farmer, every village, every piece of land have to produce this much crops, harvest. And his word is like the law. So nobody dared to say no. And also, but then it is not possible because all land are not equal, not suitable for same crops. Also, Mao decided you have to plant rice. You cannot plant anything that you can sell, cash crops, they call it, like tobacco, peanuts, or anything else. So, of course, that cannot happen. And they blame the world. They say God didn't create a perfect world landscape. So mountains are troublesome, rivers are not good, and so we have to move mountains, change rivers, because then make more, people are more powerful than God. People will correct God's mistake. And Mao wrote an essay about how a legendary man and lived in front of two mountains, and the mountains block his way to go places. So he just started digging and moving the mountains, and people laughed at him. He said, okay, I die, my children, my grandchildren, for generations, if we now stop digging, the mountain will be moved. And so he was become a hero and model for the entire China. We were forced to memorize this essay. And every day we're there out their moving mountains. And this, I already talked about it. And all cities turned into iron production ground. And they only produce essential products, and for the whole economy. Also food, the same thing. A lot of fruit, they're luxuries. So fruit trees kind of all forbidden also. I remember one time I went to Shanghai to see my grandparents. They asked me, Shanghai had a better life, and asked me, what do you want? We have fruit stores. I said, I want apple. My grandfather said, what, just apple? I said, yeah, I just want to have an apple because I don't get to eat an apple. And later on, we were exiled to the countryside, and the countryside still have some fruit trees naturally grown there, like the lychee or something, not the farm produced. And only then I got to eat some fruit. Actually the coupons for everything you can imagine meet the coupon. And I don't know, the money they spend on design and printing and distributing these coupons, it could be used very productively elsewhere, but we have countless coupons, even sugar and salt and matches, small things, toilet paper, and to all the food and the vegetables, and even haircut, bath. My friend keep asking me, bath? I said, yes, you get 1 coupon per month for going to a public bathhouse, because most families have no facilities to take shower. Like I said, the family of 8 live into my grandparents' house. They don't even have a toilet. So they have to go to public bath. And with coupon, you can go once a month. And even today in Chinese universities, and when we're teaching there, the students say, oh, can we leave early today because today is a bath day? We get to go to get the bathhouse and to take a bath. If we go late, maybe no more hot water, and they close at a certain hour, even today. And the picture showed, even with the coupon, it was still need to fight to get the food. I remember I just in those kind of line to get a cabbage or some potatoes. Another thing is political correctness. That's very popular nowadays in this country. And not just this country, maybe in Europe and many other countries. And that's the cause of the Cultural Revolution. And what you say, certain terminologies, all the names of the street have to be changed, and all the monuments either take down or erect for the political correctness. And even personal names. A lot of people got punished because they don't have politically correct personal names. My family, my immediate family, my parents and my brother and I, we didn't, but our cousins, many of them, because they have to. They can just take one word from your Chinese names. Usually can have 2 or 3, sometimes 4 characters. Any one characters, if they can elaborate into something like, for example, something symbolize you love Taiwan, or you love United States, or something like that, you're in trouble. You're imprisoned or you're executed, whatever. So people are rushing to change names. The most popular name is Protect Mao Zedong, Love China, or a soldier. I'm a soldier. That character for soldier is very popular. And my generation, born in 1958, 59, most of people have name was related to Great Leap Forward. Either leap or forward or leap forward. When I see those names, I know when they were born. And if you see the name of Protecting Mao Zedong, Love Mao Zedong, you know they were born in 1960s and 70s. And the street names, of course. And the Cultural Revolution, because reminds me of recent movement in the United States. And they're trying to destroy everything that's not politically correct. In 1968, my father was in prison because he made a joke about Chairman Mao's wife, not joke, a rumor, because she, the first lady, was a movie actress before she met Mao. Everybody knew about it, but nobody allowed to say it. And so my father said, oh, our family friend who was actor during the time and knew about Madame Mao, just because of that. And he was put in prison of counter-revolutionary. And after a year, the prison was too full. They don't have enough prison to hold everybody. So he was sent to hard labor. Then finally released, and then they sent our whole family to be exiled. And my mother was a professor. The students were that popular thing to do that time is to take your professor, give them a name, crime label, and put a sign with their name and their crime on their neck, and march around the street to publicly shame you. And for women especially, they will cut your hair into a yin-yang style, means they will cut half of your head, shave half of your head, and randomly cut the other side, make you look like a ridiculously crazy person. This picture shows that the right guard, the students, was cutting this professor's hair. And also the sign usually made with the plywood, very heavy. And they use a very thin wire, metal wire, to put on your neck. So because the sign is very heavy, so you have to bend down from the weight. And after day after day, usually more than 10 hours, 15 hours a day, those wire cut into your flesh. And you're bleeding, you're hurting, so your head is getting lower and lower. For Chinese culture, when you bow your head, means you did something wrong, and so you're humiliated that way. And they put you on stage. A lot of times kneel on a bench, and your knees are really sore, and you couldn't keep your body straight, and then they will start kicking and beating you. Many professors were died on the stage during these kind of criticized session. And my mother got that kind of treatment, and every day was marched around the campus. And all schools stopped. My brother and I had no school to go to, so I would usually go to the campus and on the main street to see, to read the big posters, because they have big posters posted everywhere. And renewed daily or hourly to accuse people of made up crimes. So I would go there to try to read to see what new crimes they labeled my mother with. Also, through that, I learned how to read because we had no school. And another popular thing they do is called jet propulsion posture. Two men hold one arm each of a person behind the back. The higher they drag your arm, the lower you get down. And so that's another way they treat people every day. And the sign had a lot of details on there. If your name have the characters are straight up, means you're okay. If the characters was tilted or upside down, it means you have a bigger crime. If your characters have a cross on there, and even more severe, if the cross is red, means you're on your way to be executed. Execution was daily. My brother and I used to climb up on a wall to watch the street on the other side of the wall, because that's the road to the execution ground. So every day, truckload of people get to was taken to the execution ground. We will have so-called fun counting how many people today going there. And the burning all the non-correct, politically correct things. That another thing reminds me when I watched the recent event in the United States. And not only that, they will go to people's house to take away everything that's not politically correct. The Red Guards came to our house. My father had more than one pair of shoes because he loves shoes. And all the shoes were piled up and burned because they said each person only need one pair of shoes. You have so many, that's your crime. And my mother had some dresses, Western style, and they cut into shreds in front of us. And they took our family photos. And they said, look at these people dressed so nicely and still have a smile on their face. And how evil they were. And they burned all our photos. So until today, I have very little of childhood photos. So my mother still didn't care to take photos because we don't have anything left. And photos became the evidence of crime for us. And all the antiques and collectibles, they knew better. They didn't destroy that mostly. They took away into a government warehouse. Recently, somebody reminded me, Lin Biao, the second man under Mao, and suggest that they have a show of confiscated antiques and artifacts, art. So in Beijing, only in Beijing, they have something really valuable of antiques. And the show lasted for about 2-3 years because this is just too many. And of course, cash, gold, definitely it was evidence of crime and was confiscated. My great-grandmother, earlier I showed you, she, during the Cultural Revolution, she was 88 years old, bonded feet. Her whole life have a very good, comfortable life. She never worked a day. Only her labor was giving birth to 9 children. And the Red Guard forced her to go out to the street to weed the lawn. How to weed the lawn? Just by on your knees by hand, pull the wheat out from the grass. And after a few days, she was just too exhausted and got sick and died. She had a very good health before. Yeah, the picture with me and my brother with smile, actually, we didn't know much, anything better. We were just watching, counting how many people on that specific spot, counting how many people were dragging to be executed. Then from 1969 to 93, we were sent to the most remote mountainous area in south of China, and no electricity, no running water, and people still planned with us about 1,000 years ago, very primitive, from the big city. And fortunately, my parents were all Christians. We have big heart. And my father and 5 other family who were exiled with us, and they built a clinic to help the local people. And my mother, an English professor, just became my father's surgery helper without any training. And my brother and I will hold flashlights behind my parents during the night if there's an emergency, and with a fan to chase the flies away during the day when they're doing surgery. And later on, because my father became very, very famous because he's a good doctor, he saved so many lives when the whole area have never had a doctor. And so they government moved us to a steel mill in a small city, and he became the doctor there. And my mother worked in the factory, I think in some kind of research office. And I learned how to drive a tractor. That's why when I came to the United States, I didn't need to learn how to drive. I already knew how to drive a tractor when I was 15 years old. That was the whole family, my grandparents, and my uncle and his wife have 3 children, and my brother and I. When my brother was the only boy, so he get to place in the middle of the picture. How many minutes, Steve, I still have?
Let's see. I guess you should wrap it up in 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, and then we can take some questions from our attendees.
Okay. We survived. Not just physically, mentally we survived. As I said earlier, we're Christians, so we had faith. We didn't become crazy or commit suicide, but many people, other people did. In my family, extended family, there were 11 people commit suicide because they didn't understand what happened, what they did wrong, why they suddenly became criminals, why suddenly everything turned that way. One of my cousins, I love her so much. She, when she was 15 in Shanghai, she was one of the most talented girl I've ever met. She knew all the crafts. She taught me how to do embroidery and make things. And then when she was 15, she was sent to the countryside to be re-educated. And she was born, her parents were British educated engineers. They had a good life. And she couldn't handle the hardship in the countryside. And after a few years, the new policy was, if you're sick, you get to go back to your parents. So she wasn't sick. So one day she injects some ink into her vein. She thought when she can pretend her blood is not red anymore, because she had no knowledge. And of course, the blood test didn't turn out as she expected. And she was punished because they said she wanted to fake illness. She just killed herself. And I have an aunt. Her husband was a founder of Sichuan Bank, one of the first private bank in China. And they were punished so much, and she didn't know how to handle it. So she just threw herself in front of a train. And her son tried to prove himself as one of the good people and joined the Red Guards. And then the Red Guards started civil war, criticizing each other. And he happened to be on the wrong side. And they put him in prison and tortured. And he couldn't understand. He thought he was following Mao and doing the right thing. So he climbed onto a chimney in the prison and jumped. Before that, he drank a lot of wine, killed himself too. And I had a classmate. That time was same as me, 8, 9 years old. Her father was a professor, educated in United States, and they labeled him a traitor and a spy, and big posters and everywhere with her father's name. And when she saw it, she didn't understand. She went home to ask her father, I thought you're my father, you're good. Why you're so bad? You're against the country. Her father said, no, that's wrong. Don't trust them. Believe me, I did nothing wrong. And she just couldn't comprehend it. She said, you're lying. I believe the government. So she started to beat her father and bite him. She's a little girl. She didn't know what to do. And the father tried to push her away, and she went out the house and jumped into the trench behind her apartment. She was saved. But from then on, the father just put towels on his arm and legs, let the daughter bite. And my other cousin, they became kind of crazy. I remember actually my uncle, one of my uncles, when he came to the United States, visit us in Hawaii, she was so terrified because we live in a single family home. There's no walls. We're not in a high building. He said, oh, you have no walls. This is so scary. I can't be in your house. I said, well, this is our house. We can't do anything about it. Why don't you just close the window and lock the door? And my husband and I, we have to go to work. Sometimes when we came home in the evening, 7 o'clock, it's pitch dark. He would not turn on the light. He would sit on the the smallest stool, and not dare to sit on a chair because he will be visible by other people. He would sit on a stool in the dark, waiting for us. And because he was so frightened during the Cultural Revolution, and he permanently turned that way. So we're very, very thankful that 4 of us, my brother and I and my parents, we didn't become that way. And my father came to the United States and learned heart transplant. And because in the United States, you if you're not educated here or you're not citizen, you are not allowed to practice. So he was in the lab training other doctors do heart transplant. He did research. And my mother is better because she was English professor. So she was hired here to teach Chinese, first at the University of Kansas and then Brandeis University in Boston. And my brother lives in Kansas and he is an engineer. And
Li, we're running short on time. We only have about 10 minutes left. We do have a few questions that have come in.
Yeah.
So
this is my final statement.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, because yeah, like on the slide, the country can do a lot to you. And so in China claim to be a socialist country now, no longer communist. And many politicians in this country embrace socialism. To me, they're the same. They're just a different name. It's milder and of communism, but in the core value, it's the same. And we're watching our country, this land of free, is moving towards the wrong direction. And that's why I have to speak out and sharing my story, because it's not fiction, it's not ancient history, it's in my lifetime. It happened to me, it will happen to anybody, anywhere in the world if we don't do anything to stop it. Thank you. And okay, this is, I'm not going to talk about it, but you know what's going on in Hong Kong. If we don't do anything to help the people in Hong Kong, we will watch one of the most free place become slave of the communism.
Thanks very much, Li. That was fantastic. Really appreciate it. So we have 3 questions that have come in from our attendees. I'm not sure we'll have time to get to all 3. The first one comes from Nelson. He says, I saw your China's Socialist God with Matt Kibbe. Do you want to talk about your introduction to freedom via the United States Constitution? I don't know if we have enough time. That's
I have one comment. You know, Constitution is important. China has a very, very good Constitution, but it means nothing. It's a showpiece. And Xi Jinping changed even in that one Constitution item to take away the term limit so he could be in power forever. So what we need to do in this country, do not make Constitution to turn into a showpiece like China.
Okay. All right. Next question here is from Robert Gay. Do you think the current Chinese people, which has seen the benefits of capitalism, will tolerate measures similar to the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution if the CCP attempted to enact them again? I think they're kind of...
Yes, I understand. The Chinese Communist Party and the government benefited mostly from capitalism. They understood. They actually understood the market. They didn't think the free market is dead. They benefit so much because they are in control of all the means of production, all the natural resources, all the roads and land. So they benefit to the max. But because they are government and they are not true free market, so it's not sustainable. At the same time, they're trying to eliminate all the private businesses. And small businesses, if they don't have a family help, they will never get a loan from the bank because all the bank owned by the government. and they don't give small business loans to private entrepreneurs. And like Alibaba, these big companies, Chinese government have majority ownership. Even Disney, China, Shanghai, city of Shanghai have 50%, 51%. That's the only Disney in the world. They don't own majority share. So China on surface right now is very prosperous, but it's not sustainable because it's still is a state capitalism.
Okay, another question here from Jonathan Chance. You are a Christian. Do you see the removal of God from education as a contributing factor in China and the United States?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
In China, it's not just from textbook or from school. It's from everywhere. Christian pastor, one pastor just got 8-year sentence just being a pastor, and Sunday school is illegal in China. And right now, they cannot close all the churches because they had to still tell the world we have religious freedom. But they only allowed government churches. Government churches is they call 3 self. So the pastors get the government, like government employees get salaries from the government, and government assign them. I heard there's a guy they have a religious school, and he studied to be a monk. Buddhist monk. He was assigned to be a Christian pastor because, religion is the same. And I met the monk. He said, in school, we were memorizing book of Matthew and book of Luke. I can memorize all of them. I knew because that's our required courses. So they were assigned a job. That's government churches, but most true Christians, they don't go to government churches. They have, about 10 years ago, China was relatively open. So a lot of churches opened up, and a lot of people study in the United States in the seminaries and went back to China. Now they're all persecuted. Their doors are locked. Their pastors were in prison. And Sunday school is illegal. Thai is illegal. And so, yeah, I hope this country doesn't go that direction, but it seems like many little things, little aspects, and it's getting towards that direction. It scares me. Yeah.
Okay, we just have a couple minutes left. I had a question for you myself, Li. I have heard from a China expert that China is actually controlled by 24 families, and maybe a total of about 3,000 elite people in the elite that control the entire country. Do you know if that's true? Is that accurate?
In what sense control? Control the economy or control the politics? Politics only controlled by one person, Xi Jinping.
Okay,
And,
but I was told.
The economy, yes, controlled by a lot of princelings. We call the second generation red. We have second generation red and second generation rich. The second generation rich, mostly all in the United States and Australia and other countries. Second generation red, half of them are outside also enjoying being rich and red. And one guy just this week, he's a second generation red and benefited from the state capitalism, became the real estate tycoon. But then because the influence of capitalism and others, he has some realization of seeing the problem with the planned economy and the communist Xi Jinping government. So he spoke out a little bit. Now he got 18 years 18 years prison sentence, and I don't know, 4 billion, 4.5 billion fine, something like that, a huge fine, monetary, he had to pay. Yeah, 18 years. It's just because he is a second generation, one of the families you were talking about, and say something that's not pleasing to the Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping, he used the excuse of anti-corruption movement, eliminated all his opponents, anybody who is threat to his power. All of those people were government elite and CCP leaders. And everybody's corrupted because the power, when there's power for sale, you know, people will pay for it. And all the Chinese military commanders were paid for. It depends how much you pay the government, then what rank you will get. It's not like this country, you have to move up from your, you know, experience and whatever. In China, it depends how much you pay. You pay enough, you get to be general. You pay enough, you become whatever rank. That's open secret. Everybody knew. But you have to pay enough and on the right side. I heard there's one guy paid enough, but happened to be on the wrong side of Xi Jinping and never get promoted. Everybody feels sorry for him. So talking about if China and US get into war, I don't think Chinese military had a chance because leadership. But China start to forbid any military personnel now to have vacation now. They were calling everybody to join the military just this last week. There's indication for something, yeah.
Okay, Li, well, we're really reached our time limit here, but yeah, thank you again you know, for taking the time. Your life story is fascinating, and you know, we just really appreciate your presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope we will, I will awake some people and let's do something and not let this country turn to that direction. That's my
Yes,
goal.
absolutely. Absolutely right. All right. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Have a great afternoon.